Hi, I'm Chris Magnuson from Alphacrucis College. I'm here with Pastor Joshua Newington, one of our amazing lecturing staff, and we're going to have a quick chat with him and learn a little bit about him and why he's such a great lecturer at Alphacrucis College. So Josh, thanks so much for being with us, of course. First of all, what do you lecture at Alphacrucis College?
Mostly theology, a little bit of ministry stuff and some history, but mostly theology.
Fantastic. And why do you kind of see that theology is important for us today? I know a lot of people have tried to downcount theology and say we should get rid of it, but why do you see theology is important for us today?
Well, it's all kind of theology. One of the things that we look at very early in the programs here at Alphacrucis in Theology 101 is that there's good and bad theology, but there's no way around theology. You might reject the idea of theology, but that is a theological proposition. So you are doing theology. So it's better to acknowledge that you're doing it and try and do it well than pretend that you're not doing it and do it badly.
Wonderful. That's a really great thought. It's inescapable almost, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
How did you yourself get into theology? What kind of sparked your interest in theology?
It was really, I was a high school teacher for a while and teaching Christian studies at a Christian school. And it was really questions that I had from students that made me realise as a Christian of 30 years plus that I didn't have good answers to the questions of like 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
And that was a worry because I was supposed to be teaching them. So that made me realise that I needed to own my faith and understand it a bit better.
So that pursuit to understand your faith and going down the route of theology, where has that taken you?
Well, it's taken me here.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But Cheryl and my wife and I decided that we would do it seriously and put some time aside. So we moved to Canada for a couple of years and I studied over there at Regent College. So that was really my first foray into real theological study, and that was after I was, mid-career as a high school teacher. Yeah.
So you've come out of teaching and you've gone to do some professional training in theology at Regent's College in Canada. What was maybe some of the specific fields of theology that really interested you when you were on that study journey?
Well, I'm particularly interested in the kind of structure below a lot of the theology we do. So why do we think the way that we think? Because different cultures at different moments in history and different places around the world, they view the world very differently. So part of that comes through when you, say, go to a different type of church. It's hard to understand why they're doing what they're doing, but it's because they're often doing things from a completely different perspective. And I'm interested in those kind of foundational blocks that we build our theology on. I could use some theological terms, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing to do at this stage.
So you've kind of actually then rooted your theology very much seeing it as outworked in the local church. Do you sort of see yourself as a part of a local church now? Are you still involved in the church?
Yeah. So I'm the teaching pastor at a church here in Brisbane, Cornerstone Christian Church, and even before I was on staff there, my wife and I had a strong sense of being in ministry, for want of a different term.
Yeah.
I think connection to the local church is really important. I'm passionate about the local church and honoured to serve on staff at the church where we go.
Fantastic. And maybe last question, Josh. How have you seen that, like a greater understanding of theological concepts and theology as a whole? How has that either positively or hopefully positively affected your ministry or your working as a teaching pastor at your church?
Yeah, that's a good question. It'd be interesting to ask the people at my church whether it has. But for me, I think it's good to know why we do the things we do and why we believe the things that we believe. When it's around what we're doing and why, partly it's good to think critically about that stuff because there might be a better way of doing things. When it comes to what we believe, God can surprise us. God should surprise us. We should never be at the end of learning about God and having God reveal himself to us. And theology is really ultimately about coming to know God, the revelation of God. It's a terrible pity, I think, if we get stuck somewhere. We sort of feel like we've learnt everything there is to learn about God. That's actually where faith dies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where Jesus is so often misrepresented, actually, is where people just get stuck in a place. So being open to learn about God, I think, is really fruitful and enlivening for my own faith, and hopefully that flows out to my context of ministry, that people encounter someone when they deal with me that continues to love God and learn about God and is excited about God because of that.
Wonderful. Well, I think that inspires us to continue seeking after God and continue to seek after understanding him and knowing him even more. So thanks so much, Josh, for sharing with us. I know students are blessed when they're in your class. We always have raving reviews. So again, thank you so much for joining with us, telling us a little bit about your journey. And yeah, we can't wait to have students, more students in your class as time goes on.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
It's been fun.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. That was Pastor Joshua Newington, one of our Alphacrucis lecturing staff at the Brisbane campus, sharing about why he loves the